you want to go to law school, studying Talmud is a great preparation. Why? Because the Talmud teaches you to squeeze the meaning out of every word. There's an example from our Parsha. The Torah is detailing the progeny of Aaron, and it mentions his eldest two sons, Nadav and Avihu, died. God killed them because they brought an Eish Zarah, a strange fire, an unauthorized offering to the Mishkan, to the tabernacle. Then the Torah tells us, Uvanim lo hayu lahem, that they had no children. The Talmud in Yevamot explains this is not simply descriptive. The Torah is not simply telling us they had no children when they died. It's telling us they died because they had no children, because they failed to perform the mitzvah of Pruruvu, to be fruitful and multiply. Now, this is strange because the Sifra, the Midrash, which talks about the incident, says that they died for usurping their father. Aharon was the Kohen Hagadol, was the high priest. He was their dad. He should have been the first one to bring a sacrifice to the Mishkan, to the tabernacle, when it was being inaugurated, and they pushed him out of the way and went first. In fact, the Midrash imagines Nadav saying, Avitu, I can't wait till these two old guys kick the bucket, Moshe and Aharon kick the bucket and die, so we can become the leaders of the people. However, these two explanations, the explanation saying they died because they failed to procreate, and the explanation saying they died because they were usurpers, are actually intertwined. They're both symptomatic of selfish behavior. The usurper says, step to the side. It's my turn now. Get out of my way. The Torah is saying, the Talmud is saying, because they didn't want to have kids, what they were really saying was, we don't have time for other people. We're self-absorbed people and can't worry about other people. Now, by the way, if you don't have children, I'm not implying you're selfish. We're actually going to talk about this. But in the case of Nadav and Avihu, the point the Talmud is making is that they were selfish people who couldn't see themselves expanding beyond themselves at all to care for another person. The Talmud actually continues and says, a man who doesn't fulfill the mitzvah of Pruruvu, to be fruitful and multiply, actually uproots the divine presence, the Shekhinah, from Yisrael, from Israel. Why? Because God said to Abraham, L'chiot lecha le'elokim uzaracha aracha. I will be a God unto you and your seed after you. In other words, a man who fails to fulfill this mitzvah is thwarting the divine will, that he will be a God not only to you, but to your children, the door, from generation to generation. And our job as an Or L'Gaim, a light unto the nations, as a representative of God, is to make sure that we have another generation, so that next generation is able to also share God's message with the rest of the world. By procreating, we're ensuring that God will be in the world because we are taking God's message to the rest of the world. Now, Moshe understood that it was the job of Bnei Israel to share God's message with the world. After the incident of the egel, of the calf, of the golden calf, God was prepared to destroy the nation, destroy Bnei Israel. But Moshe said to God, no, for my people too. Don't destroy them. God said, I'll make you the father of a new nation, a new and improved nation, Moshe. Moshe said, no, these are my people. You destroy them, destroy me. I'm going down with the ship. Now, Moshe must have been tempted to take this offer of being made the father of a new people. That's a big deal. However, he wasn't selfish. He realized what would be taught later, what the Ramban points out in dealing with the Parsha, that when you teach somebody, you become another parent to them. Moshe had already taught these people Torah. He had already become their parent. No parent wants to see their children destroyed or become great at his or her children's expense. So Moshe said, God, I'm not interested in becoming the father of the new nation. I want to save these people. They're my kids too. And we see the section which talks about the progeny of Aharon starts out in an interesting fashion. The Eila Toldot, Aharon, Moshe. These were the offspring of Aaron and Moses. But then it only speaks about Aaron's children. It never mentions Moshe's children. Even though he had children, they are not mentioned. Why does it talk about the offspring of Aharon and Moshe and simply then talk about Aaron's offspring? Because Moshe had become a father to them by teaching them Torah, by teaching them how to officiate in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle. He had become another parent to them. They were his children as well. And the Kli Yakar points out that when Moshe saved the entire nation after the sin of the calf, that includes Aaron's sons, including the younger two, who do survive and are, in a sense, take his place by becoming leaders of the nation. L'dor v'dor, from generation to generation. Now, I said if you don't have kids, don't worry. Why? Well, first of all, let's acknowledge for a whole variety of reasons people sometimes don't have children. The point the Torah is making is it's not saying you're a bad person if you don't have children. What it's saying here is you have to learn to think beyond yourself. You shouldn't be self-absorbed. You should help others to grow, to heal, and to thrive. In other words, don't lead a hedonistic lifestyle. Think about the word teacher in Hebrew, moreh or morah. How do you say parent in Hebrew? Horeh or horah. It's not an accident they sound similar. They have the same shoresh, the same root. The point being made here is that when you teach somebody, when you become somebody's friend, you help them to expand themselves. You share some of yourself and give it over to them. And in a sense, you become linked. And in that sense, you help to become somebody's parent. You want to be someone's parent? Become a teacher, be a good friend. In a sense, you become another's parent. Now let's put this in a larger context and remember that B'nai Yisrael is preparing to enter Eretz Canaan and to build a state. Though pursuing self-interest is good, as later on Adam Smith would point out, ruthless self-absorption is a dead end. In the case of Nadav and Avihu, they did tremendous damage to their family, not only themselves, but to their family as well. And when you damage the family, you're damaging a pillar of which a society is built upon. Speaking of family and society, the Parsha and the terrorist attacks aimed at Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, remind me of a statement Golda Meir made. Peace will come when the Arabs will learn to love their children more than they hate us. Well, there's good news, actually. The good news is that has happened to a degree. We know 4 countries recently made peace with Israel, 4 Arab countries, and there's economic prosperity to go around because of his peace. However, the terror directed at our brothers and sisters in Israel, who, as I speak, are scurrying to bomb shelters, reminds us we haven't arrived yet. Im Yirtzeh Hashem, God willing, may we soon arrive at that golden place of shalom, that golden place of peace. And in light of the fact we just celebrated Yom Yerushalayim, which was the day, unfortunately, when this latest conflict began, let us all hope and pray that Yerushalayim becomes a Yerusha inheritance of shalom, of peace. Shabbat shalom.